Hello, hello everyone. So, we're meeting today for our final live session, and I hope that I'm audible and there's no network issues from my side. We'll just wait for a couple of minutes so that everybody has joined, and then we'll begin our final live session for the series that we have been holding over the past couple of weeks, where we've been connecting with all of our trainers one by one, and we have been talking about their journey in the field and about the challenges that they have faced, and of course, about the things that they will be covering during our trauma informed care practices course. So, yeah, today we have with us Veena Hari, who will be joining us in a while, and we'll just wait for a couple of more minutes till everybody has joined, and then we'll begin our session for the day. And while everybody's joining, I would just like to remind everyone that the registrations for our trauma informed care counseling course are about to close really soon. So I would urge you all to apply for it if you haven't yet, because we will be talking more about it. So if you have any more doubts, you can ask us during the live, or you can drop us an email, send us a text, or connect to us any other way that you're comfortable. We are available on all platforms almost. So, yeah. Okay. So I'll start with introducing myself officially as a part of I Am Wellbeing, because this is the first time that I'm addressing people, and this is the first time I'm also addressing people from I Am Wellbeing. So yeah, it's a pretty big moment. And I've recently joined I Am Wellbeing. It has only been a couple of months, but these last few months have really been life-changing for me, because up until now I had also been following the traditional top-down approach that they teach us in our curriculum. But joining this organization has taught me that there's so much more to learn, and I am looking forward to it. But up until now, that lens has been quite limiting. So, right now, here at I'm Wellbeing, every time there's any conversation, be it about our day to day affairs or about any big moves that we're planning, or if we're sharing our personal struggles, professional struggles, everything is just very invigorating, and I am so excited to be a part of this organization. And hi, Asha. I was just about to mention something related to you as well, because when I talk about the team, I talk about our founder, Akanksha, and every single time I hear her talking about the trauma-informed approach, I hear her talking about everything so passionately, and it gives me goosebumps every time. And Yasha can definitely agree with me there, because every time that happens, we share a look with each other like, damn, and then we write it down because it's so cool. So, yeah, I have annoyed most of my friends talking about this approach endlessly, but I can't help it because I just feel this rush inside of me every time I see someone blaming themselves for something that they have zero control over, or ignoring the signs that their body is giving them. So I can only imagine how Akanksha and all of our trainers might feel, because they have been in this field for over a decade now, and they still have to see people doing that, and especially they have to see mental health professionals doing that, not just with themselves but with their clients as well. So, yeah, to bridge this ever existing gap, they have designed this 7-month training program where they'll be talking about the trauma informed approach and different aspects of it in depth. And if you haven't signed up, I would strongly urge you to join this course, because personally I believe that this is more than a training. This course would be like a journey a journey of growth, of acceptance, and more importantly, compassion from what I've heard about from our last cohort members. So yeah, I believe that this would be a really great experience as young mental health professionals. Moving forward, we will be connecting with Veena today, who is a trauma informed and queer affirmative therapist. And she has been in this field for over a decade and is trained in advanced perinatal psychotherapy. She's a big believer of decolonizing mental health services, which I personally find really beautiful because this approach says that we connect with each other on a humanistic level. And I believe that when you look at a person as they are and when you address their concerns without minimizing anything, that is where you build that connection. Because for most of us, we spend our lives telling ourselves that it's not a big deal, it's not a big deal, and other people have it worse. But then when you have a mental health professional coming to you and telling you that, hey, maybe it is a big deal and maybe it's okay to address it as a big deal. So, that in itself can be life changing. So, yeah, now that we have some people who've joined us, we will invite our guest and I'll just add her to the live. 1 second. Thank you. It is a big deal. Yes.
Hello.
Hi, Veena. How are you?
Hi. I'm good. How are you doing?
I
Yes,
am a
why is
tad
this
bit nervous, but
loud?
taking inspiration from our last live session from Metri, I also have a big cup with me to comfort me during the session.
Uh,
And I am much more regulated than I would be otherwise. How are
Nice.
you doing?
I'm doing very well. Thank you so much. It's the pointy end of my day. I must tell you that before we even
Ah,
begin. I'm up since 5, so yeah.
oh, damn. That's a long, long day for you.
Mm,
We
mm.
won't take up a whole lot of your time. Just talk a little bit about
Yes.
your journey and especially what you would be covering during the course. So I
Hmm.
think we can get right into it and we'll
Sure.
start with the first thing that what would you be
Mm-hmm.
covering during the course?
So I am actually the entire course, by the way, is really beautifully designed. I must say that at the beginning. I'm not just saying it because I'm a facilitator on the course. I mean that too, but also because I think it's so much required, right? This gap between, I think it's become really fashionable now to say that I'm a trauma-informed therapist.
Yeah.
But it may not really. I mean, it's a very deep topic to understand, and there's a lot that goes on in it. So I think you guys are doing a great job by having this and kind of putting this together. In terms of what I'm covering, I'm kind of going to be talking about mindfulness, basically mindfulness-based activities. I'm
Mm-hmm.
actually so I actually use a couple of techniques, but one of
Okay.
the big techniques that I go into in depth is journaling and how that can be a tool for mindfulness and self-care, and really using journaling as a therapist as well, right? As being in the mental health field as well. So, we're going to be talking about that a little bit and how we can kind of marry these concepts of reflection and all of these lovely things that help in our journey, and how we can marry that with what we understand about trauma, and how our brain works in trauma and our nervous system, etc. So that's kind of somewhere where I hope to come in.
Wow. I am personally really excited for the journaling part because I have
Mm-hmm.
also done my fair share. I've tried my bit, but there's still some gap, and I would love to
Mm-hmm.
learn more about it. But when you
Mm-hmm.
talk about mindfulness and mindfulness-based practices, we have seen. a rise in awareness ever since the pandemic. People have started to realize that self-care is important and we must look after ourselves. But I feel like a lot of that understanding is still very stereotypical and social media
Mhm.
based understanding. So could you tell us
Mhm.
a little bit about how it's different from that and how it's, more than that?
Right. I think there is, so I'll go with maybe examples, right? So what happens when because these are techniques I use with my clients as well. I use it as an individual myself as well. And when I introduce these kind of activities to my clients, it feels like a bit of a binary to them. So they're like, okay, so you're saying that I should not have, I can do whatever I feel like doing because I'm taking care of myself. Like I can, kind of just relax and not do my stuff and be like, I'm having a self-care day and, just, I don't know, the social media version is the mask and the, very cliched, have a spa day, kind of very,
Yeah.
almost capitalist kind of, commercial view of it.
Yeah.
And often being compassionate to yourself is interchangeably used as being accountable to yourself. And I think I spend a lot of time explaining that you can be compassionate and accountable, right?
Hmm.
Compassionate does not need you to give away your accountability and be like, now I'm going to do whatever I want to do. So, in that same string, mindfulness and using all of these techniques can be done with a lot of awareness and sometimes doing the messy work. So, for example, I'm having some sticky feelings. I'm feeling bad. It's like this, stone at the pit of my stomach. I'd rather not deal with it. I'd rather just watch some Netflix, eat something yummy, and just pretend like nothing ever happened, right? And I can call that self care, very well call that self care, right? I can be like, I'm just relaxing, rest is self care, and I'm just going to do what I need to do. Some days we need that, but then there are also days self care is also work, right? You need to work on what
Yeah.
you're feeling, processing it, thinking about it,
Definitely.
reflecting on it, discussing it, journaling
Hmm.
about it, right?
Yeah.
So mindfulness in that sense becomes about taking care of what is going on in your body, right? What are the feelings going on, investigating it, and knowing what you're offering compassion for. ये नहीं कि blanket compassion, जो कर लूँ ठीक है, it's fine, self-care.
Yeah.
Asking that question, being accountable. If there's a goal you're working towards, be accountable to yourself to working towards that goal. So it's a mix of both. It doesn't have to look like complete, on this end of the spectrum, ke jo man karna hai kar lo, and just buy these bunch of things and you're like self-cared. No, that's really not. It's kind of doing the heavy lifting work.
Yeah.
Sometimes it looks like doing your budget sheet. Sometimes it looks like, cleaning up your house, even if you don't feel like it and it's the most boring thing in the world. That's also self-care. So,
Yeah. Nice. I've never really looked at self-care from the lens of accountability. So I think that's also something new for me as well. I've looked at it as compassion, I've looked at it as acceptance, but accountability is a word that I'm associating with self-care for the first time. So I'm really excited about learning more about that.
yes.
All right. So, since you have been in this field for a long time now, when did you realize that this is important for you as well and not just for your clients? Like, as a therapist, how did you realize that, this is something that you need to do?
Right, absolutely. That's such a great question. And it really made me think, because I was like, okay, when have I started? I've been journaling for a long time. And, some of a lot of my mindfulness practices kind of go with it. So you'll hear me talking a lot about journaling, but I'm kind of talking about the whole practice.
Mhm.
I'll give you a very simple example. Very early in my career, as we often do, we take up jobs which are much more demanding. So we're working on the community, on the field, and I had a similar kind of job. I wasn't privately practicing, and that required me to be in a government setup in a observation home with children. And the kind of place itself, right, and the kind of work itself can really be very intense and heavy. There's super high rates of burnout. You're talking to like, I don't know, like 10, 15 kids a day,
Yeah.
40 new cases a week. I mean, it's insane, right? The numbers are just, I'm now when I think of it, it's absolutely insane. I think that's when I began to feel the first, and of course, we're much more idealistic at the beginning of our career, like, we can do everything. right? Yeah,
Yeah.
Bean can do everything. So, so I think that was for me the point at which I realized, okay, I need to do some things for myself, and those
Mhm.
simple practices, be it as simple as simple sounding as just coming back and taking the time to, on a piece of paper, dump down everything you felt throughout the day. The heavy stories, the intense stories, the pain, all of the emotions you've absorbed and you've carried along with you, and putting it down and then doing all your practices. So whether it's a bath, it's like some kind of unwinding from it, right? And taking care of it, because it's not just for me, right? Because the next day when you go back, you have to be a blank slate again, right? If you're
Yeah.
carrying stuff from the previous day, you're not going to do a
Yeah.
very good job at therapy, right? You're not going to do
Definitely.
a very good job being there for your client because you're already crowded with,
Yeah.
everything that you're still carrying. So it's I see it as part of my job, so sitting down doing this journaling, it's for some it seems like hobby. Oh, so much time for hobby. Right? No, it's part of my job. If I don't do it, if I don't keep cleaning up what's going on inside me, I can't do a good job with
Yeah.
my clients.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And when you said that we have this belief that we are therapists and we can do everything, I believe that this is the societal stereotype that is associated with therapists or any medical
Oh my
professional to
God.
say like doctors थोड़े बीमार पड़ते हैं and therapists को
Yeah.
थोड़ी issues होते हैं. So like that thing, I think it stems inside of us also, and as much as we are trying to fight these stereotypes, we somewhere still abide by them. And when we start looking at self-care practices, we realize that okay, maybe this is something that I also need to do. So yeah, that
Absolutely.
has been a really great conversation about that. Hmm. So moving forward, um, as you know, journaling, it has its stereotype and it has its struggles as well, because along with the stereotype, people also have these formed beliefs that it's just writing, writing is not going to help me, and all of that. So I'm guessing that it might not have been easy for you to integrate these practices in your sessions, because I remember that when I also started my journey as a therapist and I also encouraged my clients, and even in my own
Mm-hmm.
sessions as a client, I sometimes feel that resistance that maybe I don't want to do this because it's uncomfortable to go
Mm.
slow or to be present in the moment. So I want to understand that what challenges have you faced and how did you overcome those challenges?
Right? No, I mean, I don't think I've overcome it. Let me just be clear. I think there is resistance for sure.
Yeah,
And not just in sessions. I get invited to, talk about journaling in a lot of places, in a lot of different contexts. Sometimes it is in a corporate, sometimes it is a bunch of students, sometimes, so these different groups. And what
yeah,
stands out to me is across these groups, there's always a journaling. Oh, okay. Like it's a very, okay. I mean,
yeah,
what do you mean by that, right? And I think that's a very interesting way to put across resistance, because that is in a way, right? What can writing my problems on a piece of
yeah,
paper do? And I think that's where, the difference between intellectually knowing something and actually practicing it and doing it and, knowing what it can open up. So I
yeah,
try, so in these cases, when I come up with resistance, I ask, when I see the nonverbals, I'm like, is this something you're comfortable with? How do you feel about it? Do you want to try it? So on. And we work with that. Sometimes that looks like, okay, can we just do a small exercise right away? So there's, less defenses, right? They don't have to like
yeah,
make up their mind, sit with a book and then kind of do the homework. I
yeah,
said, let's just spend 5 minutes. Can you write? And I'll give them a prompt and do this. Sometimes what happens is I'll tell them to do that and they'll be like, okay, I'm going to write for 5 minutes. Okay, I'm done. And that's also resistance,
yeah,
right? Because it's hard to like, okay, let's get to it. Let's go, go, go. Let's go
yeah,
to the next thing,
yeah,
right? So we
yeah,
stay with that. I'm like, yes, I
hmm,
know. So there are still 4 minutes to go. So why don't you just take some time? It's okay if you don't write all of the 5 minutes. Just
yeah,
stay with what's coming up, right?
yeah,
And usually by the second and the third minute, there is more stuff, and then another layer,
yeah,
and then another layer,
yeah,
right? And that's how kind of it comes up. So we stay with that. We notice it.
hmm,
I usually find that calling it out is helpful. Right, when you just call it out, then there is, oh yeah, okay, I'm doing this thing, and let me try it. I try and share a lot of, when it's a workshop kind of situation, I share a lot of my own examples. So I often will go with like, ye pile high of my own journals, and I'll be like, this has been my journey, and That's the thing about this. I think as I had tried mindfulness in many ways. For me, it had not worked before that, in the sense that I hadn't found my rhythm with it, right? And
Yeah.
I'm generally a very high energy person, so I would struggle with, the very slowness and all of the things that you're talking about, right? But that's when I realized that, and now also there's a fashion of like meditation as being like the gold standard.
Yeah.
It's great for whom it works, but we know from the trauma informed point of view that it may not work
Yeah.
for everyone. It's really
Yeah.
threatening for some, right? For
Definitely.
those kinds of, and this is such a great example because you engage all your senses in this practice,
Hmm.
right? You put on a candle, you have like coffee with you, tea with you, whatever you like. You do the lights like you like it. Have all the colors, have all the textures, different kinds of paper, feathers, sticky things, shiny things, glittery things. Like do the whole sense bit that brings you into the experience,
Wow.
and make it a full experience for yourself, right? It doesn't have to just be writing, right? That's one way of looking at it. So I try and give my example. Journaling has changed my life really in so many ways, I think, because it's just helped me through so many phases, made me realize so many things about myself, and even today, if there's something that I'm struggling with, I go to my journal. That's my safe place. It is the place where I'll process it. I'm like, why am I feeling this way? Like, what is happening? What is happening with me? And usually my journal will stay with me until I find my answer. So I try and share those, I try and share those kind of examples. And sometimes, particularly as a therapist, I want to give you a couple of examples which are also
Yes,
therapist
please.
related.
Yes.
In this session, you kind of sit and wonder, something's happening. I'm not able to point my finger on क्या कुछ तो चल रहा है. Like there is some
Yeah.
subtext. Even in those situations, I think sitting with my journal and just processing what came up and what was happening, that's really helpful in being present with my client, kind of having the space of,
Mhm.
noticing what I'm, because if I'm feeling it, that means the client's feeling it and it's kind of getting passed on. So it's definitely needs to be brought to attention that, I can sense a little bit of discomfort, what's going on there, and, so on. So these kinds of insights, it's also a great place to have that. Um, and yeah, I think these are kind of some of the ways in which I try to deal with the resistance. To co-therapists, I'll say try it yourself first. Like you do it. And if you are sold on it, that's the only way you can,
Yeah.
I'm sure my clients, if any of them, hear me to be like, oh, here she goes with her journaling again, and here she goes. But I have quite a few converts. I have quite a few clients who are like, thank you so much for, introducing this to me. So that's enough for me.
Nice. I think even if we get one person, one convert,
Oh, yeah.
I think that's enough validation as a therapist that, okay, I'm doing something good out there. But yeah, when you were describing the entire process of, setting up your own practice for journaling, that gave me goosebumps. Like, okay, I am trying this weekend. I'm going to do it definitely. So yeah, but yeah, there are a lot of I would say challenges when it comes to integrating these practices, and a lot of them do come up because of the stereotypes that are already existing. But I hope this conversation would break some of those stereotypes. And as I can see, some of the people who have joined us have also agreed with us quite a lot in the comments. And
Mhm,
yeah,
mhm,
okay, all right. So, moving forward, journaling, as we write about things and we try to reflect on everything that has been going on, right? But mostly when people look at it, they look at it from a point of view that, okay, it's just about my personal things and it only concerns me. It there's a gap in bridging that understanding that it's not just you, because you are your work and your life and your relationships and everything, everything about you, about your life is connected to your personal self. So I feel that there is a gap when people look at journaling and mindfulness practices. So how do you think we can bridge that gap into, making people see that this is more than just you? It impacts your life in a holistic sense.
Right, right. That's such a great question. And I'm going to answer that, but before I answer that, I'm also going to clarify that journaling is not just words. You can journal without words as well, with
Okay.
only colors, with only pictures, with only song lyrics, borrowed words. Borrowed words are my favorite kind of activity to do in these kind of workshops. It's I'm like, you don't have your words, and I मुझे नहीं पता क्या लिखना. I don't know what to write. Okay, don't write. Borrow your words. Instagram saves, Pinterest saves. Go everywhere in your phone. Things you've randomly taken pictures of. Do that. Do that. Like it doesn't have to look like dear diary. Today this happened and then this happened. That's not
Yeah,
what it needs to look like. Have fun with it. You got a few labels from some shopping you did, stick it on. कहीं से ticket मिल गया, stick it on. Just doodle, right? So that's
yeah,
one clarification.
nice.
Coming back to why, and this is again, so I work with a lot of new moms,
Hmm.
and parenting is a notoriously no timing job. It's like a 24/7 thing that happens. And that's exactly what comes up when I tell them, okay, let's, why don't you try to put some feelings down or, do some journaling. And the first assistant says, no, I don't have time, right?
Yeah,
I need to be a mom. I need to be at my job, etc. And that's where we begin to make the connection between these are the things that will help you be a better, more present, more gentle,
yeah,
or whatever is your goal in parenting. That's what it's going
yeah,
to help you, right? Because it's going to lead
yeah,
to deeper understanding, self
yeah,
awareness, right? Um, when you know yourself better, you love yourself better, you love others better, right? There is this sense of, and when we don't know ourselves, we may hurt others with our own unprocessed
yeah,
feelings and
definitely.
dysregulated, periods. So I think there is an obvious connection over there. It's not self-indulgent. It's kind of being responsible for the people around you by taking responsibility of your
Yeah,
own dysregulation and emotions, right? Taking agency over it, which is something really to learn, especially with a history of trauma. It's something really that's important to kind of reclaim that agency and that narrative, taking the narrative in your
yeah.
hand.
I think you have given us two wonderful points here because two things that people strongly believe in or they like to believe in. One is that I don't have time for it. I don't have like the resources for it or something. But what people don't realize is that doing these things is going to lead to more time and more resources, and this will clear up so much space from your mind, from your life, and it would make you move forward. And the other thing that you mentioned, I have forgotten now, but one of the things it just slipped my mind while I was having the
No
conversation.
worries.
But another thing that you mentioned, what was that? After time, what was the other thing that you mentioned?
About being, it allows you to
Yes,
be more yourself with people around
yeah.
you.
So one thing that people strongly believe is that, when we do self-care, that we might be getting selfish, and, that when we start this journey, but this journey, going on this journey is also about the people in our life. So I believe that that is also another strong belief that you have
Right,
addressed through these
right,
questions. So
right.
yeah. So I've really enjoyed this entire conversation a whole lot, and
Same
I
here.
personally have learned a lot. But one last thing that we like to ask all of our trainers is that if you could leave budding mental health professionals with one thought, who would be joining us and who would be going forward in their journeys as well.
Right. Oh my God, I had so many. I think I was like, oh, what should I? What should I? Um, I think I'll just say one thing. Probably it's taken me a while, and I'm still learning about this as I go, is to learn to not. So even as you are a therapist and you do the job of being a therapist, right? You're going to have your own life. You're going to have your own problems, your own relationship struggles, your own, dysregulation, all of that, right? None of that means you're not a good therapist. It just means you're a person too, right? There may be days when you're having some stuff and you have to show up for your clients and you'll question, am
Hmm.
I, can I be here? You can. You can.
Wow,
That's all.
that really hit me personally. Okay. Well, I think that's about it. That is all the questions that I had thought of for asking you because I was really excited, about mindfulness and about journaling, and I am definitely going to practice. I'm going to set up my station for this weekend, and I'm going to take out some time for that. So,
Mm-hmm.
for all the people who are joining us, please sign up for the course, and we
Mm-hmm.
will be talking more about mindfulness during the course. So, yeah, thank you so much for taking the time out at the end of the day. And I hope
My
you have a
pleasure.
great
I've
weekend
really
ahead.
enjoyed this conversation. I've really enjoyed
Me
this
too.
conversation.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.